The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we think it decriminalize marijuana.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Oh, yes. Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Wednesday, February 13th, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world, and it's got to be Valentine's Day tomorrow, so guys, don't forget. Welcome to the show. We're so glad you could join us. We've got special guests hanging out in the studio today. We have our own Bacon Dan, PDX, in the studio. How you doing?
Not too bad. How you doing, Russ?
Doing great. And, of course, Brian the Red out here in the tech center.
Hey.
We're having a good time. For those of you who won a prize in our auction for Brave Michaela, we just shipped that stuff out today. So actually, it's leaving tomorrow when they pick it up from the U.S. Postal Service. So those will be on their way. Should reach you between 2 to 9 business days. The prizes are on the way. So if you need any tracking information, just go to our contact form, send me an email. I'll get you the tracking number if you want to keep track of that. Also, don't forget that no live show tomorrow or Friday. I will be on the Amtrak train on my way to Los Angeles, California. I know, for the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, which is also awfully nice. Yes, High Times Medical Cannabis Cup in L.A., taking place Saturday and Sunday, starting at noon. So tune in here at 420radio.org. We'll bring you live coverage from the floor, all sorts of interviews and cool video and stuff with the vendors and stuff. So check that out all weekend long. VIP members, you're going to get some late night stuff on Saturday night, backstage at the concert with The Game and Redman, and Sunday night backstage at the High Times Medical Cannabis Cups Awards. You'll be the first to find out who wins these awards. You'll see it live from backstage. If you're a VIP member, sign up for as low as $4.20 a month through PayPal by visiting Join Us at the 420radio.org page. All right, for today's show, we've got Dr. Mitch Earlywine in our Cannabis Q&A segment. You can call in live or get your chat questions in for cannabis science, culture, history, and health at the bottom of the hour, so stay tuned for that. Also on today's show, there's a new communications director from the ONDCP. He's been hitting up Huffington Post trying to convince people that we're really doing a good job on the war on drugs. There's a whole lot of success to look at. Funny thing is, the source that he cites actually shows that we're not doing such a great job. I'll point that out to you in the Radical Rant. Also, we'll go behind the headlines, take a deeper look at some of the marijuana headlines today. But first, we've got our 420 radio news coming up right after this break. Some stunning headline out of Arizona. Not good news for drivers in Arizona. Plus other headlines from all around the country. Right here on the Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. Stick around.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
California is the center of marijuana consciousness. That's why High Times Magazine is returning to the Golden State for our second High Times Medical Cannabis Cup in Los Angeles. That's right. Come to LA Center Studios on February 16th and 17th for this high-flying event. Meet the medical cannabis industry, visit our extra special medicating area, and sample the best cannabis products of Southern California. There'll be cultivation seminars and presentations about getting pot legalized, not just in California, but everywhere. Be there on Saturday evening when we host a Rock'em Sock'em concert with surprise musical guests. And don't forget Sunday night and the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup Awards when we honor the best sativa, best indica, best hybrid, best concentrate, and best edibles of the LA medical cannabis scene. Plus, we present the High Times Lifetime Achievement Award to marijuana superstar Tommy Chong. Come to the City of the Angels on February 16th and 17th for a High Times cannabis celebration. Go to medcancup.com for details. Live the high life. Be proud of who you are. Be part of the growing cannabis community. The High Times Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam is recognized as the world's premier marijuana competition. Over the years, thousands of judges have attended the Cannabis Cup, sampling the best indicas, best sativas, best hybrids, and the best hash on the planet. In the April 2013 issue of High Times, read all about the sensational 25th Cannabis Cup that took place in November. Find out about the latest killer strains. Decide what to grow in your garden this year. Celebrate 25 years of the Cannabis Cup in this very special issue of High Times Magazine. On sale now.
Now it's time for your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, February 13th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Arizona court ruling upholds DUI test for marijuana from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. Motorists in Arizona can continue to be prosecuted for driving under the influence of marijuana, even if the only proof is a blood test that shows a chemical compound that doesn't cause impairment but can remain in the blood for a month, a state appellate court has ruled. The Court of Appeals ruling overturns a decision by a lower court judge who said it didn't make sense to prosecute a person with no evidence they're under the influence. The legislature adopted the decades-old comprehensive DUI law to protect public safety, so a provision on prohibited substances and their resulting chemical compounds should be interpreted broadly to include inactive compounds as well as active ones, the Court of Appeals said. The Court of Appeals sided with prosecutors who appealed, saying that allowing the testing for marijuana's active compound would unduly restrict law enforcement. The ruling said it serves the legislature's intention to have a flat ban on driving under the influence to interpret the DUI law's reference to prohibited substances and its metabolite as covering both a substance's active and inactive compounds. Marijuana legalization and regulation bill introduced from the valleybreeze.com in Rhode Island. State Representatives Edith Ayo and State Senator Donna Nesselbush announced legislation last week to legalize marijuana possession for adults aged 21 and older and to institute regulations and taxes similar to those for alcohol sales. According to Ayo and Nesselbush, a Democrat serving Senate District 15 in Pawtucket and North Providence, regulating marijuana like alcohol will take sales of the drug off of the streets and into the hands of legitimate businesses that would face disincentives for selling to minors. The new businesses will create jobs and generate much-needed new tax revenue, they said in a statement. The sponsors contend that the current drug policy banning marijuana has done little to stop drug use and instead has created a black market that makes marijuana use and acquisition more dangerous and supports gangs and cartels, while the state could be making significant tax income on marijuana and improving its safety. Huge turnout at Spokane Forum on marijuana legalization from the spokesman. In one of the biggest turnouts in the state, more than 450 people packed into the State Liquor Control Board's public forum Tuesday night in Spokane to talk about Washington's baby steps into the world of state-sanctioned sales of legal recreational marijuana. The clearly supportive crowd at the Spokane Convention Center mostly raised objections as to what's perceived as the bureaucratic red tape set out by Initiative 502. However, several speakers pleaded with the Liquor Control Board members to ensure that limitations remain in place on advertising. Liquor Control Board Director Pat Kohler said the fourth in a series of forums throughout the state was designed to engage those in the business early in the process before the state finalizes rulemaking. The wild card remains federal officials. In Western Washington, U.S. Attorney Jenny Durkin has not prosecuted medical marijuana dispensaries that operate under the letter of state law. In Eastern Washington, however, U.S. Attorney Mike Ormsby directed agents to raid or send letters that shut down more than 40 dispensaries in the Spokane area. Kohler said the board met with Ormsby this week, and he repeated earlier hopes to soon announce how federal officials will react to the law. Kohler said the state needs to receive word sometime this summer, or growers will not have enough time to produce the first marijuana that will be available in state-sanctioned stores on December 1st. Police say Joliet, Illinois couple had 71 marijuana plants from the Herald News Sun-Times.com. Police say a Joliet couple had 71 marijuana plants in their home before a task force raid early Tuesday. Sergeant Mike Fisher said the department's narcotic officers, who work with the Drug Enforcement Administration, had begun investigating Randy E. Mota, age 28, and believed he was selling marijuana. Early Tuesday, officers used a search warrant to raid the house in Joliet where they found the plants, 18 pounds of marijuana, 4 handguns, and a rifle, Fisher said. Mota was booked in the county jail on charges of aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, production of marijuana plants, delivery of marijuana, and marijuana possession, while his wife, Nicole Mota, was also jailed for marijuana possession. Deputies say teen smokes pot on school bus in Florida and shares with students. From MySuncoast.com. A Charlotte County Sheriff's School Resource Officer arrested a 14-year-old boy for smoking marijuana on a school bus and passing it around to other students. A 16-year-old girl with the teenage boy burned a hole in her front pocket when she placed the lit marijuana cigarette in there to hide it. Witnesses said he lit the joint, took several inhales, blew smoke out the window, handed it to the girl, who also inhaled. That's your 420 radio news for Wednesday, February 13th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we're going to go behind the news on the latest marijuana headlines. This is the Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
All right, time for us to go behind the headlines. And for today, we're going to take a look at a few different stories that I just have been collecting throughout the week. And this first one appeared on Huffington Post, and I believe it's from KIRO, which is a Seattle TV station. And it's a story on marijuana smokers taking driving tests. So let's take a look at this one. Oh, sure, now you won't play. Let's try that again.
To find out how much marijuana is too much to get behind the wheel, we have set up a driving course. We've also recruited the help of a drug recognition expert. And we have marijuana and volunteers. We're going to find out how much marijuana is too much to be on the road.
The strain is actually called blueberry train wreck.
As a consultant prepared our marijuana smoking lab, 3 volunteers each took a practice run on a course set up by the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, designed to test their basic driving skills. In the car with them is Cascade Driving School instructor Mike Jackson, who has a brake on his side of the vehicle for safety.
I can either grab the wheel or I can touch the brake and bring him to a safe stop.
Our first volunteer, Addie, is a 27-year-old medical marijuana patient and heavy daily user who had smoked some pot prior to arriving. A blood test before our experiment began showed she came to the track already 3 times the new legal limit for driving under the influence of marijuana. The limit is 5 nanograms. She was at nearly 16 nanograms. While learning the course, Addie turned too sharp at a stop sign and clipped one of our cameras. But the instructor told us her driving was actually fine. Our second volunteer is 34-year-old Dylan, who uses pot on weekends. An initial test showed no marijuana in his system. Finally, we have 56-year-old Jeff, who uses only occasionally. He also started out with no detectable pot in his body.
All right.
Next, we had the volunteers start smoking marijuana. We gave them each 0.3 of a gram of pot to smoke, and from the light to the heavy user, asked them how they felt.
Feeling really buzzed. Yeah.
Relaxed and buzzed.
I still feel normal.
Back behind the wheel for another lap, Addie drove a bit slower than she should, and at one point struck a traffic cone.
Oh, I hit a cone. I see it in the rearview mirror. Ah!
A blood test would later show Addie was driving at 7 times the legal limit for pot with 36.7 nanograms of marijuana in her system, but still driving okay.
I wouldn't pull her off the road, no. No, not yet. Not this point.
After 0.3 of a gram of pot, Dylan was doing fine behind the wheel.
Ooh, that was fun.
Even though our lab tests would later reveal he was driving at 5 times the legal limit with 26 nanograms of pot in his system. When we got Jeff on the track, he was being cautious and driving slower than he should, which could catch the eye of a police officer on the road. His blood test showed Jeff was 4 times the legal limit with nearly 22 nanograms in his system. But again, his driving, while slow, was still at acceptable levels.
He did real well.
We had our volunteers smoke and drive 2 more times until they had all smoked 0.9 of a gram of pot, and they were feeling it.
I'm starting to get it. Oh, yeah. I can feel it in my eyes. I can feel it in my body, in my head.
I don't know if I can get, much more stoned, even if I keep smoking it.
And it started to show more on the road. With a drug recognition expert from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office watching, Dylan started having trouble remembering how to drive the course.
Oh, what is this cone in the middle?
Confused, he turned early and left the track.
You missed out. Oh, let's make our left. Let's do it again. I'll give you a second chance.
Okay.
Then, while going through a 20-mile-an-hour corner, the instructor had to grab the wheel to stop Dylan from swinging wide and hitting our photographer.
Watch yourself, watch yourself.
I had to grab the wheel to keep him basically from running you over.
If I were to be watching him on a road, I would have stopped him.
Jeff's driving also got worse the more he smoked.
His backing is very slow.
We watched him back over a cone, and after 0.9 of a gram of pot, he drove so slowly the officer told us he should not be on the road. Jeff agreed.
You don't think you should be behind the wheel right now?
Well, I would prefer not to, yeah.
After 0.9 of a gram, Addie was becoming much more aggressive, excited about being high and behind the wheel.
One time in your life you get to do this, you should do it. Yeah. You should do it! Yeah. It's awesome.
But she made no major mistakes, and we asked the officer if he would pull her over.
Borderline.
We decided to allow Addie to smoke one last time, bringing her total smoked to 1.4 grams. Back in the car, Addie knew she was having trouble.
Way more stoned. Definitely shouldn't be driving.
And she drove with no restraint.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. That was awesome. That was awesome.
Less than 30 seconds into the drive, she started backing up and didn't stop until she wiped out a cone.
Which would have been indicative of backing into a pole or maybe a citizen on a sidewalk.
The sheriff's officer, driving instructor, and even Addie agreed she would not be safe if she was on a public road.
She would be a danger, yeah.
Yeah, definitely that's dangerous.
To confirm the volunteers were driving impaired, we treated them like anyone else pulled over and suspected of drug use. The county's drug recognition expert put them through a 12-step evaluation, checking things like their balance. Heart rate and blood pressure were also checked. They all had issues, including Jeff, who couldn't find his nose with his fingertip.
I would say that all three would have been arrested for driving under the influence.
A final blood check 1 hour after her final smoke showed Addie at 11 times the legal limit with 58.8 nanograms in her system. We checked Jeff an hour and 45 minutes after his last puff of pot, and his levels had dropped to 2 times the legal limit at 12.9 nanograms. And Dylan was tested a full 2.5 hours after he last smoked and was still 2 times the legal limit, but his nanograms had dropped to 11.1. It's true, all of the volunteers were able to safely drive a car.
Oh, yeah. Now, that's one of the best videos I've seen all year long.
If that isn't an excuse to raise our nanogram limit, then let's do it.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna see how much more nanograms we can pack into our bloodstream here. Happy 420. Hey, we'll talk about this video in hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. I got a lot of things to say about it, but we're low on time. We'll be right back.
If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that Reefer man.
Great. Drugs make me strong. Drugs make me smart. Drugs make me feel good. Drugs make me cool.
You believe that crap? Huh? You believe all that stuff they're handing you about drugs? You want to believe in something? How about yourself? Don't do drugs.
Funky roller ring.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening, Groovy Cats? This is your Funk Master of Ceremonies, Big Daddy, and I want you to join me every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here at the Funky Roller Ring.
Oh, yeah.
Your home of soul, funk, and disco, baby.
Funky-licious.
There's always a party at the Funky Roller Ring.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
Kind of cool we get to end the week here being Irie, and we'll turn it right over to Brian the Red, who's got all the details.
Yeah, so usually for the Daily Toker Tune, I do the title track to my last week's show, Red Eyes Reggae Flashback. But this week, I'm going to go ahead and switch it up and play a different track from that show. This is New Sound in Town by Roots Radix. So check it out.
There's a new sound of town. Here I am. I've come to lift you off of the ground with my songs. I come to rescue you from the doldrums with my songs. Hey, new sound of town. New sound of town. New sound of town. I know you're tired. You're fed up and tired of feeling the same old thing day after day. to rescue you from the doldrums with my songs, with my songs. Hey, the new sound and down, new sound and down, new sound and down, new sound and down. Here I am, here I am, here I am, here I am. Hey, mama, 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 there's a new sound and down. Here I am, here I am. I've got to lift you over the ground with my songs, with my songs. I've got to rescue you from the doldrums with my songs, with my songs. Hey, new sound and down, new sound and down, new sound and down.
Hi, this is Dan Michaels. If you're looking for professional voice talent for your commercial or podcast, I'm your man. Visit Dan Michaels.
All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed.
There was one question that was voted on that ranked fairly high, and that was whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy and job creation. And I don't know what this says about the online audience, but...
Second, it is violently opposed.
DEA is running over a guy in a walker. My money!
Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. Legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana. 47% support legalizing, taxing marijuana. Half in U.S. support legalizing marijuana use, poll finds. Record high 50% of Americans favor legalizing marijuana use. Guatemala's president campaigns to legalize drugs. Commission of World Leaders urges end to failed drug war. It's increasingly normal to support marijuana legalization. Support marijuana legalization by joining NORML today at normal.org. Together, we will win.
It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earleywine. Dr. Earleywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times Magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
All right, everybody, it's 30 after the hour. It's Wednesday, and that means it's time to talk with Dr. Mitch Earleywine. How you doing, Doctor?
Much better, thank you.
Oh, so glad to hear your voice. And we always open up by reminding folks you can get your questions into our chat room by typing /login and creating yourself an account there on Ustream. Type a capital Q and a colon and then your question, and that puts up a little marker, makes it easier for us to find. Or you can just call in live. The number's right there, 971-533-7111. We always let Dr. Mitch have the opening salvo here. What's the latest in science or studies or polls, Dr. Mitch?
Oh, a hip new study out of Columbia tried to use one of the antidepressants, Effexor, to treat alleged cannabis dependence and depression combined.
Okay.
And those who are regular listeners know how I feel about antidepressants, but it turned out those on the antidepressant actually did worse as far as cannabis abstinence was concerned at the 3-month follow-up. So I got a big kick out of that.
In Effexor, what are some of the side effects of a drug like that?
Yeah, let's get started, shall we? I mean, dry mouth, crazy mood, potential for suicidal ideation, or you could just use your cannabis like you were before. So, no, if you really are concerned about dependence, turning to the antidepressants is not the way to go.
Absolutely. All right. There's a study that came through some of our contacts. It's kind of interesting. I get these emails from people who have far, far more learning and letters than I do, and it's interesting to watch you guys discuss these things. But it was this study, I think Sunil Agarwal brought this to my attention, the effect of alcohol availability on marijuana use, evidence from the minimum legal drinking age. And what does this study tell us, especially with regards to marijuana policy?
I mean, if it's the one I'm thinking of, what we essentially saw was that binge drinking in underage folks tended to decrease in states that had more lenient or at least less prohibitive cannabis policies. Is that the one you're thinking of?
The abstract on this one says discontinuity created by the minimum legal drinking age of 21 years to estimate the causal effect of increased alcohol availability on marijuana use. We find that consumption of marijuana decreases sharply at age 21, while consumption of alcohol increases, suggesting that marijuana and alcohol are substitutes. Yeah, this is the one on substitution effect, I think.
Well, and so not all the economic studies have been coming to that same conclusion. And it a little bit creeps me out, because when we start thinking about the negative consequences of alcohol, for folks to turn 21 and suddenly turn to alcohol instead of cannabis, maybe, relatively maladaptive when you think about the potential negative consequences. But some of Rosalie Bakula's data don't support this substitution effect, so it's hard to know what to make given the samples that we have.
One of the pieces of data that I mined the other day from the national survey had to do with, actually, this was from the CASA, Joe Califano's group. For the longest time, they'd asked, what's the easiest for kids to buy, and they'd always say, it's easier to buy pot than to buy alcohol. We jumped on that, and then since 2009, they've stopped asking that. Now they ask access, which, now you're talking about kids sneaking it out of the fridge at home or their mom's purse or whatever. But in trying to look down that number, I found a very stunning chart that showed when they asked kids 12 to 17 years old, do you know somebody at your school that sells this drug, blank? 91% knew someone who sold pot, compared to 24% for prescription drugs, 9% for cocaine, 6% for cigarettes, and 1% for alcohol. So maybe, and this is just a hypothesis of mine, it's just easier for kids to get a hold of pot. And when they turn 21, it's like, oh, now I can go buy something legal and not have to worry about getting busted.
It's sad but true, and the irony is this is with prohibition in effect. Right? If we actually had control of this market with a taxed and regulated source of marijuana, of course those guys would never sell to anybody under a certain age because they'd lose their, livelihoods.
Yeah.
So we've really got everything ass backwards. What a surprise.
Yeah, what a surprise. We keep incentivizing people to choose alcohol. It's ridiculous. And again, another hypothesis I have, as I have to fight, these rhetorical battles and try to come up with sound bites for the radio or a letter to the editor, I always like to think about, let's not play in their frame. In rhetoric, you always want to make sure you're not using your opponent's frames. And one of their frames is, we got to stop people from smoking pot. If pot use goes up, that would be bad. And I'm starting to form this line of reasoning that, wait a minute, maybe pot use going up would be a good thing if they were using that instead of Tylenol or Ambien or booze or whatever else. So, anything we have on this substitution effect is of interest to me. What do you think about that idea?
Well, I think that that's a brilliant one, and the other one I would recommend is focusing on problems rather than use. This tacit assumption that just using cannabis at all is this disaster is, of course, ridiculous. Instead, why don't we take a look at anybody who has any cannabis-related problems, and then suddenly, what a surprise, the frequency drops to essentially less than a tenth of the people who were using cannabis in the first place. And when you realize how small those numbers are, the idea that we would then spend billions of dollars trying to get inside people's houses in order to bust them for owning a plant becomes particularly ridiculous.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's go to some of our questions that we have from our chat room right now. Somebody in our chat room asks, I don't have a spleen. Since marijuana has cancer-fighting qualities, is it an immune system booster as well?
As it turns out, we don't have any evidence that it decreases immune system function, at least in full humans. If you really crank up the dose on a small petri dish full of cells, then you can hurt them. But it does. We also don't have any immune boosting evidence either. So we're essentially at a wash as far as that is concerned. I don't have any published case studies on folks without spleens. In either direction on this. I do have one friend without a spleen who's used cannabis for years and doesn't seem to have any ill effects. So,
we just, before we did our segment with you, Dr. Mitch, we had played a video from Cairo News up in Seattle, KIRO, where they did a driving simulation. They did a driving test. They had 3 volunteers, one heavy cannabis user, occasional cannabis user, and infrequent cannabis user, taking 0.3 gram doses and then going around the simulator. And they all, did pretty well as far as the people observing them go. But this brings me to my question, which is, you just mentioned we don't have a lot of case data on frequent marijuana smokers who don't have spleens and whether or not they get cancer. I mean, of course we don't. There's not going to be a whole lot of those ends to be able to choose from. But how do you feel that now we have legalization in Colorado and Washington that researchers can take advantage of that, the legality now, to be able to produce some of these studies?
Oh, I envy those folks so much I can hardly articulate it without sounding like a big jerk. I mean, the opportunity to gather data where you can administer cannabis in the lab legally, it's just a wide open new field. We're gonna have outrageously interesting new publications within, I'd say, the next year.
Oh yeah, I mean, just this news story alone, and I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but I'll email you the link because I think that's going to just have people questioning, why do we have this 5 nanogram limit? I mean, the heavy user, a young woman, 27 years old, came in at 16 nanograms, and even the cop said, I wouldn't pull this person over. She's driving fine. Did a couple of more hits at 0.3 grams each, and they took her out each time. Eventually she elevates to something like 7 times the legal limit, and they're still saying, oh yeah, she's driving fine, we wouldn't pull her over. I think it's going to do wonders for this debate on this per se DUID stuff. I know Paul Armentano's sick of talking about it, that's for sure.
But nothing to help our fight like the truth.
Well, yeah, and that's, this is the advantage, and something I had told people, as we were fighting these campaigns to legalize, is the effect of legalization is so much broader than just, I can have an ounce and not get busted. It's now the truth comes out. Now we can actually have these scientists, researchers, doctors, displaying the truth and not being afraid of, getting busted for trying to do that. All right, let me get back to our chat room here. The phone lines are also open at 971-533-7111. And if you have any questions that you just maybe want to keep private, you can always email them to Dr. Mitch. It's 420research@gmail.com, 420research@gmail.com. And there was some discussion in the chat room about cannabis's use for treatment of arthritis and psoriasis. And I'm wondering what you can tell us of that.
Well, so the arthritis literature literally goes back to 2700 BC or so. I mean, we've seen arthritic pain being treated with cannabis for literally millennia. With psoriasis, there are a lot of vast individual differences. Pharmacologically, it doesn't make sense that this would be a first pick for dermatitis or psoriasis or those kind of skin-related diseases. But I have had 2 emails since about 2005 or so of people saying it helps them and they don't understand why this isn't a bigger deal. So I'm definitely open to hearing about that. I just haven't seen any data.
The next question we have has to do with, and I think we've got one still in our forums. That's a new method we now have, folks. If you want to get a question answered and discussed on our 420 radio forums, those are available. We got a Dr. Mitch forum out there. And one of the questions that was hanging out there had to do with someone who was commenting on a story about contaminants with respect to, medical marijuana products. And in this story, the young lady who was working the dispensary that was suspected of giving out a moldy sample mentions how their standard was to put the bud under a ultraviolet light and then look at it, and then if anything dusty rose up from it or anything turned green on it, then that was the sign that it was bad. How much worse could our quality control be?
In all honesty, this is the saddest part of the underground market. I mean, how hard would it be if we had, a tax and regulated market to have more straightforward sources and, I hate to say it, but better storage in the first place to prevent things like this? If you are concerned about mold, of course, I hate to say it, but people do actually throw cannabis away sometimes, and you can also spread it out on a cookie sheet. Put your oven up to 180 degrees, get it heated up to there, turn it off, put the cannabis in there, and that should kill most molds.
Yeah, this is another factor of the prohibition, making it so expensive that you do anything you can to save as much of it as you want. I think back to the days when I was in Idaho and I'd be rolling a joint, and if I dropped the slightest crumb on my shirt, it was like lick the end of my finger and tip that and make sure I get that little crumb. Nowadays, I'm throwing ashtrays away that have roaches in them. I just throw them away now. It's not even worth keeping track of. So there's got to be something to, once marijuana is legal and it gets down to its real price, that it's going to be a harm reduction in that people don't feel the need to save moldy or any sort of contaminated weed. It's like, oh, just throw that away. There's plenty more.
And in addition, you're not going to see these backhanded sneaking metal or spraying odd heavyweight liquids on bud in an attempt to squeeze an extra $25 worth of weight out of nothing.
Yeah. All right. One final question here before we call it a day. But again, 420research@gmail.com if you want to get your question by email. Drug War End has a question. Is it true that cannabis can stave off symptoms of HSV? Which I don't even know what that is.
Oh, unfortunately, there are 2 things that HSV can stand for.
Maybe our chat room people can tell us.
We don't have published data on either one of those, so I unfortunately can't say much. But let me look that up, and we can get into it in more detail next week.
Yeah, and if they're listening in the chat room, they can let me know HSV, which one you're referring to, and herpes simplex virus.
Okay. Well, so in fact, that is such a complicated thing where essentially stress can lead to outbreaks, and cannabis does decrease stress, at least in a subsample of folks. So you can see how that would certainly help. But as far as actually killing the virus inside your body, no, we don't have any evidence for that.
All right. Well, that's all the time we've got for our Cannabis Q&A this week, but join us next Wednesday for another discussion with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Get your questions ready. Send them in by email or through our forums, and we'll get them answered. Dr. Mitch, thanks for joining us again, and we'll talk to you next week.
Looking forward to it.
When we come back, time for some radical rant, folks. We're going to take on the latest communications director for the Drug Czar's office. Oh, Raphael, you're in my crosshairs, my man. Be right back.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
My name is Steve Downing. I'm a retired Deputy Chief of Police from the Los Angeles Police Department. When I was a young cop on the street in the 60s, I believed the rhetoric and the propaganda that drug abusers were bad for our communities, that they were thieves and all of that. And as I progressed through the ranks, I began to question those things. In 1970s, I took over the narcotic enforcement effort. One of the rules we had, if more than $100,000 cash was going to go out on the street as the flash for the buy, we required a command officer in the air and a helicopter. I was up one night when we had over $100,000 on the street. The officer flashed the money. The crook pulled out a gun and shot him in the face and killed him. And I said, he is really dead, and his family is without a husband and a father because he's trying to stop an addict from getting some dope. He's not trying to stop a bank robbery. He's not trying to stop a rapist. You don't see Coors and Budweiser distributors shooting it out on the street. That's because alcohol is regulated and controlled and taxed. I would legalize, regulate, and control all drugs without incarceration. There would be a significant reduction in the prison population across this country. Families would be allowed to stay together, and this country would save probably $1 trillion over the next 25 years.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
Well, you know, the drug war rages on, and the new, kinder, gentler drug warriors are coming out of their shadows here, trying to find a new way to repackage what only 7% of the people believe we are winning. And as of late, of course, my main target has been Kevin Sabet. A little bit of Paul Chabot on the side, just to spice up the dish a bit. And your heaping helping of Gil Kurlikowski for fiber. But my latest one, this guy just popped up on the Huffington Post today because my latest article, the rant that I did yesterday on the top 5 sound bites, hit Huffington Post today. And right above it is this article from a fellow by the name of Raphael Lemaitre. Or Lemaitre? I'm not sure. It's French, and I'm not sure. But anyway, he's the communications director for the Office of National Drug Control Policy, a.k.a. the Drug Czar's office, a.k.a. required by law to oppose the legalization of any substance in Schedule 1, a.k.a. pot. So, they've got a mandate. They've got to find a new way to get people to support their budget, basically, and their jobs. And part of this is to try to get away from the old drug war metaphors and try to paint what we're doing as some sort of success. This has led them to digging around in the statistical barrel to try to find some positive spin to put on the drug war. And here it is from Raphael. The title of his piece is Are Drugs Today Really Cheaper, Purer, and More Readily Available Than Ever? You've probably heard this claim. Despite decades of effort, we've failed to make any significant progress in reducing drug use in this country. No, wait a minute. I'm not sure who made that claim. I know it wasn't me, because compared to 1979, far fewer people are using marijuana and any other drugs. But I'll let you have your straw man. Let's go on. Some critics go so far as to say that illegal drugs are cheaper, purer, and more available today, and he puts that in quotation marks, so somebody directly said that apparently, than ever before. This is a compelling argument and a powerful soundbite, to be sure. There's just one problem. It's not true. Okay, so what we're positing here from the Communications Office of the Drug Czar here is that illegal drugs are cheaper, purer, and more available today than ever before. True or false? Is this true or false? Are drugs cheaper, purer, and more available today than ever before? Now, as Raphael lays out his points, here is his supporting evidence. 1, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, overall rate of drug use has dropped by roughly 30% over the past 3 decades. Now, folks, that is absolutely true. Nothing wrong with that data. There are fewer people using drugs today than used to be. And he wants to use that as support of, because we bust them and arrest them. That makes them stop. Okay. But does that have anything to do with whether drugs are cheaper, purer, and more available? No, I'm afraid not. All right, point number 2. More recently, since 2006, the number of past month current users of any illicit drug other than marijuana has dropped 16%. Driving this decline have been decreases in current users of cocaine, 44%, meth, 40%, prescription drugs, 14%. That is true. What does it have to do with whether drugs are cheaper, purer, or more available than today? Nothing. Number 3, the Monitoring the Future study says overall rate of illicit drug use of high school seniors has fallen 35%. Does this have anything to do with whether drugs are cheaper, purer, or more available? No. Number 4, the same survey of youth drug use reports that the perceived availability of cocaine among high school seniors has dropped by nearly 50% since its peak in 1989. Perceived availability. They think it's more available. Now, does that answer the question whether it was actually more available? No, I'm afraid it does not. Number 5, according to STRIDE, System to Retrieve Information from Drug Evidence. You know, I really need to get a job with the government again. I used to work for state government in the mid-90s in Idaho. I called myself the Associate Administrative Assistant for Annoying Acronym Acquisitions, or the AAAAA. I would have a perfect job working for DEA here. STRIDE, sorry for the tangent, law enforcement's largest forensic laboratory database. Cocaine purity over the past few years dropped to levels not seen since reporting began in 1981, indicative of a significant disruption in the U.S. cocaine market. In response, the number of current cocaine users in 2011 dropped significantly from levels in 2002 through 2008. That's number 5. Now, this is the first piece of evidence he cites to say, are drugs cheaper, purer, and more available than ever before? Now, he does indicate that that cocaine purity has dropped. Okay, so we're talking all illegal drugs, right? Coke, meth, heroin, pot, ecstasy. But cocaine, at least we can cite that cocaine has gone down, but we're not saying anything about price, are we? Okay, so out of 5 points so far, you have defended one drug for one data point. All right, let's go on. Number 6, according to the United Nations, cocaine consumption has fallen significantly in the United States in the past few years. The retail value of U.S. cocaine market has declined about 2/3 in 1990s and about 1/4 in the past decade. This is a slippery one. The retail value of the market has declined? Certainly. Has the price of cocaine declined? Well, we'll have to check that out. Isn't your argument, again, drugs cheaper, purer, more available? You're kind of telling us they're cheaper, right? Because the market has declined? The value has declined? Hold on to that one. We'll come back to that. Number 7, final point. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Center for Health Statistics, unintentional overdose deaths in the United States related to cocaine dropped 41% from 6,700 in 2006 to 3,900 in 2009. The year for the most recent data are available. Does this tell us anything about whether drugs are cheaper, more pure, or more available than ever before? No. All right, so I figured let's take a look at that STRIDE database, since you so helpfully gave me a link here. And I looked at that, and the link he gave me only gave me DEA information for the year of 2007 with respect to methamphetamine or cocaine. So I decided to go to his office, the actual website of the ONDCP. And it turns out that there is a little piece of data there called the 2011 drug threat survey. Let me see if I can remember the exact name of this damn thing so you can look it up too. The National Drug Control Strategy Data Supplement 2011. That's what it is. Now, if we head on to page 72 in this, this is your boss, Raphael, wrote this up, by the way. This is from your own department. Just in case, you want to make any claims about drug potency, purity, and price, they got some really cool tables here. On page 72, as a matter of fact, if I can get there we go. Page 72, we start this chapter on drug user expenditures and availability. And there on page 72, the average, table 60, average price and purity of cocaine and crack in the United States from 1981 to 2009. Now remember, he made the point that cocaine was down to purity levels not seen since 1981. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? In 1981, the purity of cocaine for purchases of 2 grams or less, that would be your street-level purchase, was 40%. In 2009, the most recent year for data that are available, the purity is 48%. So yes, cocaine is still more pure than it was in 1981. Now, has the purity gone down? Yeah. In 2002, they were seizing 70% pure cocaine. In 2006, it was 74% pure. Yeah, it's gone down recently. But overall, the 3 decades that you mentioned since 1981, no, cocaine is 8 points more pure than it was in 1981. Now, as far as the price, this is a really good one. It'll scare you. Wrong sound effect. For the price, here we go. In 1981, the price per pure gram of cocaine, a 2-gram purchase, was $637.41. For a pure gram of cocaine today, or 2009, most recent data, $184.73. Aha, there you go. There we go. All right, let's move on to crack cocaine, since, we got to keep track of the crack as well. You don't want to lose track of your crack. Now, the data only go back to 1986, but the price of crack in 1986 was $418 per pure gram, and it was 85% pure. In 2007, most recent data, it was $167 a gram and 75% pure. Okay, so, the price went down by $250, and the purity went down by about 10% of crack, from 85 to 75. So good job, DEA. Let's take a look at our good friend heroin. How's heroin doing these days? Well, folks, in 1981, the purity of heroin was 11% in purchases of 1 gram or less. In 2009, the purity of heroin is 32%.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do drugs.
Okay, so drugs are very bad. 11% to 32% over the past 30 years or so. And the price difference? $1,934 per pure gram in 1981. $394 per pure gram in 2009. Yeah, there you go. So, heroin, one we can all agree is pretty bad. Much cheaper, much cheaper, and 3 times as pure. Let's go on to the next page, page 74, table 62, average price and purity of methamphetamine. Ooh, scary. Methamphetamine in the United States. Let's check it out. In 1981, methamphetamine was 46% pure. In 2009, 80% pure, not 18, 80% pure methamphetamine, which used to sell $4.22 a gram in 1981. In 2009, $175. And this is in inflation-adjusted dollars, 2009 dollars. So, yeah, meth is much cheaper and twice as pure. All right, finally, average price of marijuana in the United States. 1981, price per gram at 10 grams or less, $8.81 per gram. In 2009, $14.12. Yeah, so the only drug for which the price has significantly increased is the one that can't kill you. The one that is far less addictive, and the one that can actually be used as medicine for a variety of illnesses and maladies. And the potency's gone up. Average seizures at the federal level from 3% to 9% in that span. International seizures, state domestic seizures from about 2.5% to about 5%. So yes, all the drugs, except crack, are more potent than they were in 1981, and all the drugs, except pot, are cheaper than they were in 1981. Didn't have time to get to the availability, but at those kind of prices, what difference does it make? Hey, that's all the time we got. Thanks for joining us. For Bacon Dan and Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers. See you in L.A.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.